Morning, all. All right, so we're up to the 2012-2013 season as we continue this look at the NHL's history 1 year at a time. So only about 11 videos away from finishing out this series. That being said, the East in 2012-2013 was won by Pittsburgh. It's a lockout shortened season. They finished 36-12. 72 points, 165 goals scored, 119 goals against. Sidney Crosby is their leading scorer, 36 games, 15 goals, 41 assists, 56 points. The Montreal Canadiens finished with 63 points, record of 29-14-5, 149 goals scored, 126 goals against. Max Pacioretty is the leading scorer there, 44 games, 15 goals, 24 assists, 39 points. The Washington Capitals finished 27-18-3 for 57 points, 149 goals scored, 130 goals against. Alex Ovechkin, the leading scorer in Washington, 48 games, 32 goals, 24 assists, 56 points. Boston, fourth in the conference, 62 points for them, 28-14-6. So remember, the top three teams are your division winners. We do have 6 divisions at this time. So the Bruins, 131 goals scored, 109 goals against. Marchand, the leading scorer there, 45 games, 18 goals, 18 assists, 36 points. The Toronto Maple Leafs finished 26-17-5, so 57 points for Toronto. 145 goals scored, 133 goals against. Phil Kessel, the leading scorer in Toronto, 48 games, 20 goals, 32 assists, 52 points. The New York Rangers, 26-18-4, so 56 points for them. 130 goals scored, 112 goals against. Derek Stepan is their leading scorer, 48 games, 18 goals, 26 assists, 44 points. The Ottawa Senators, 25-17-6 for 56 points, 116 goals scored, 104 goals against. Kyle Turris is the leading scorer in Ottawa, 48 games, 12 goals, 17 assists, 29 points. The New York Islanders finish above the playoff line with 55 points, record of 24-17-7, 139 goals scored, 139 goals against. John Tavares, the leading scorer in New York, 48 games, 28 goals, 19 assists, 47 points. The Winnipeg Jets, 24-21-3, 51 points, so they just missed the playoffs. 128 goals scored, 144 goals against. Andrew Ladd, the leading scorer in Winnipeg, 48 games, 18 goals, 28 assists, 46 points. The Philadelphia Flyers, 23-22-3 record, so 49 points. 133 goals scored, 141 goals against. Claude Giroux, the leading scorer, 48 games, 13 goals, 35 assists, 48 points. The New Jersey Devils, 19-19-10 record, 48 points, 112 goals scored, 129 goals against. Patrick Elias, their leading scorer, 48 games, 14 goals, 22 assists, 36 points. The Buffalo Sabres, 21-21-6 record, also 48 points, 115 goals scored, 143 goals against. Thomas Vanek, the leading scorer, 38 games, 20 goals, 21 assists, 41 points. The Carolina Hurricanes, 19-25-4 record, so 42 points, 128 goals scored, 160 goals against. Eric Stahl, the leading scorer in Carolina, 48 games, 18 goals, 35 assists, 53 points. The Tampa Bay Lightning, 18-26-4 record, 40 points, 148 goals scored, 150 goals against. Marty St. Louis leading the team in scoring, 48 games, 17 goals, 43 assists, 60 points. The Florida Panthers, last in the East, 15-27-6 record, 36 points, 112 goals scored, 171 goals against. Thomas Fleischmann, the leading scorer for Florida, 48 games, 12 goals, 23 assists, 35 points. Out west, Chicago is the winner, and they finished first overall. 36-7-5 record, 77 points, 155 goals scored, 102 goals against. Patrick Kane, the leading scorer in Chicago, 47 games, 23 goals, 32 assists, 55 points. The Anaheim Ducks, 30-12-6 record, 66 points, 140 goals scored, 118 goals against. Ryan Getzlaf, the leading scorer for Anaheim that year, 44 games, 15 goals, 34 assists, 49 points. The Vancouver Canucks, 26-15-7 record, 127 goals scored, 121 goals against, 59 points. Henrik Sedin, the leading scorer in Vancouver, 48 games, 11 goals, 34 assists, 45 points. The St. Louis Blues, 29-17-2 record, so 60 points for St. Louis, 129 goals scored, 115 goals against. Chris Stewart, the leading scorer in St. Louis, 48 games, 18 goals, 18 assists, 36 points. Honestly, part of the reason why I went with leading scorer from each team, there are some interesting names on the board as leading scorers. including guys like Chris Stewart, Andrew Ladd, Kyle Turris, Derek Stepan. The LA Kings, 27-16-5 record, 59 points, 133 goals scored, 118 goals against. Anze Kopitar, the leading scorer, 47 games, 10 goals, 32 assists, 42 points. The San Jose Sharks finished 25-16-7, so 57-point season for them. 124 goals scored, 116 goals against. Joe Thornton, the leading scorer, 48 games, 7 goals, 33 assists, 40 points. The Detroit Red Wings, 24-16-8 record, 56 points, 124 goals scored, 115 goals against. Pavel Datsyuk, the leading scorer, 47 games, 15 goals, 34 assists, 49 points. The Minnesota Wild finished just above the playoff line at 26-19-3, 55 points, 122 goals scored, 127 goals against, and we're into the era now where Zach Parise and Ryan Suter have signed those really big long-term contracts. And early on, it looks like it might pay off. Parise, 48 games, 18 goals, 20 assists, 38 points. Ryan Suter had a very good year that year, too. Columbus finishes just below the playoff line, also had 55 points, record of 24-17-7. 120 goals scored, 119 goals against. Vinny Prospal is the leading scorer there, 48 games, 12 goals, 18 assists, 30 points. The Phoenix Coyotes, 21-18-9 record, 51 points, 125 goals scored, 131 goals against. Keith Yandle, the leading scorer, 48 games, 10 goals, 20 assists, 30 points. The Dallas Stars, 22-22-4 record, 48 points, 130 goals scored, 142 goals against. Jamie Benn, 41 games, 12 goals, 21 assists, 33 points, is their leading scorer. And we're starting to build up to a pretty strong Jamie Benn era here in Dallas. The Edmonton Oilers, 19-22-7 record, 45 points, 125 goals scored, 134 goals against. Taylor Hall, the leading scorer in Edmonton, 45 games, 16 goals, 34 assists, 50 points. The Calgary Flames, 19-25-4 record, 42 points, 128 goals scored, 160 goals against. Mike Camilleri, the leading scorer there, 44 games, 13 goals, 19 assists, 32 points. The Nashville Predators finished 16-23-9, 41 points, 111 goals scored, 139 goals against. Shea Weber, the leading scorer in Nashville, 48 games, 9 goals, 19 assists, 28 points. And the Colorado Avalanche, last in the West and second to last overall, 16-25-7 record for them, 39 points, 116 goals scored, 152 goals against. P.A. Parenteau is the leading scorer in Colorado, 48 games, 18 goals, 25 assists, 43 points. So kind of fun to look at who was leading the teams in scoring. Again, Parenteau is a fun one. I have not mentioned in history series, and so there you go. So October the 11th was the original start date for the season. The lockout made it clear that wasn't going to happen. So it doesn't start until January the 19th. I never had the feeling that the season was hanging in the balance. Although, as you can see, by January 19th, they waited till the last moment again to come down to making it work. I think it was a 16-hour session or something like that in order to make this work. So teams only played in their conference. We only had a 48-game schedule, and the players' share of revenue dropped from 57% to 50%. The owners said that the recession was costing them a lot of money, and they could no longer afford to pay the players 57% of league revenues, to which, I mean, it was collectively kind of crickets from fans. When you're going, oh, we want 50% instead of 57% to go to the players, I mean, it doesn't ring the same as we want to keep ticket prices down and we want to make sure that, these players aren't making so much money that you can't afford to go see a game. All that crap they said back then. Anyways, the Islanders also announced their intention to play out of Brooklyn. They don't do it that season, but this is, where they signed the lease with Barclays. We know that's not going to work, but I just figured I'd throw that on the board. The face-off violation penalty was added that year. And thankfully, it's never caused any controversy at all. None. Nope, never. Not a little bit. None. June 22nd of 2012, the Flyers trade Sergei Bobrovsky to Columbus. And he didn't have a great year, but they trade him to Columbus, and they get back a 2012 second, which becomes Anthony Stolarz. They get a 2012 fourth and a 2013 fourth as well. Though Stolarz is a good goaltender at this point, I'm going to go ahead and say that Columbus won that trade. March 28th of 2013, the Flames trade Jarome Iginla to the Penguins for Kenny Agostino, Ben Hanowski, who was very good in the NHL 14 game, and a 2013 first-round draft pick. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say that that's a trade that's won by Pittsburgh, although the ultimate goal was to win come playoff time, And as you can see, I'm wearing a Chicago jersey, so that didn't quite happen for them or for Jarome Iginla. So the Art Ross Trophy goes to Marty St. Louis of the Tampa Bay Lightning. I knew at some point in time in a video somewhere, Marty St. Louis, which is exactly the same as St. Louis, that had come out of my mouth. And there you go, you heard it. So Marty St. Louis wins the Art Ross Trophy. He's getting better with age, not older. The Masterton goes to Josh Harding of the Minnesota Wild. An inspirational story from that season. I don't think I've ever done a career video on Josh Harding. We'll see whether or not I can put one together. The Calder Trophy goes to Jonathan Marchessault of the Florida Panthers. The Conn Smythe goes to Patrick Kane of the Chicago Blackhawks. The Selke Trophy goes to Jonathan Toews of the Chicago Blackhawks. The Hart Trophy goes to Alex Ovechkin of the Washington Capitals. The Jack Adams goes to Paul McLean, the coach of the Ottawa Senators at the time. The Norris Trophy goes to PK Subban of the Montreal Canadiens, and no one complained about that one. The King Clancy Trophy went to Patrice Bergeron of the Boston Bruins. The Lady Byng goes to Marty St. Louis of the Tampa Bay Lightning. The Ted Lindsay Award goes to Sidney Crosby of the Pittsburgh Penguins. So the Hart Trophy goes to Ovechkin. The Lindsay Trophy goes to Crosby. The players say Crosby. The press say Ovechkin. And there's your debate of the day. The Rocket Richard Trophy goes to Alex Ovechkin of the Washington Capitals. GM of the Year, Ray Shero of the Pittsburgh Penguins is your GM of the Year. The Vezina Trophy goes to Sergei Bobrovsky of the Columbus Blue Jackets. So Philadelphia trades him to Columbus, and he immediately wins the Vezina Trophy. So that trade aged really poorly right out of the gate. The Jennings Trophy goes to Corey Crawford and Ray Emery in Chicago. So your league all-stars that year at center, Sidney Crosby of Pittsburgh's first team, Jonathan Toews of Chicago's second team. And then the controversy gets started. On the left side, first team is Chris Kunitz, Alex Ovechkin's second team. On the right side, Alex Ovechkin's first team and Marty St. Louis of Tampa Bay's second team. So the debate became one of, okay, wait a minute. So Ovechkin gets votes on the right wing and on the left wing. Why? And so he's been left wing on all of the all-star teams in this series. Now all of a sudden he shows up on the right side. And I know he's played on both wings, and I think he did during that season. But again, it didn't look great for writers to be voting for him for both the right wing and the left wing that season. On the blue line, PK Subban of Montreal and Ryan Suter of Minnesota are your first team all-stars. Francois Beauchemin of Anaheim's second team alongside Chris Letang of Pittsburgh. So completely different names on the board when it comes to defense. In net, Sergei Bobrovsky of Columbus first team, Henrik Lundqvist of the Rangers second team. So looking at goaltending stats, because we already talked about all the scoring leaders, Nicholas Backstrom of Minnesota leads the league in wins, record of 24-15-3, 909 save percentage, 2 shutouts. Henrik Lundqvist with the Rangers, 24-16-3 record, 926 save percentage, also 2 shutouts. Antti Niemi in San Jose, 24-12-6 record, 924 save percentage, 4 shutouts. I think that was Niemi's best season, to be honest. Marc-Andre Fleury for Pittsburgh, 23-8 record, 916 save percentage, 1 shutout. Braden Holtby of the Washington Capitals, 23-12-1 record, 920 save percentage, 4 shutouts. Evgeny Nabokov with the New York Islanders. So as I mentioned previously, the Islanders picked him up on waivers when Detroit had signed him. He did eventually come over and play, and he played well. 23-11-7 record with the Islanders, 910 save percentage, 3 shutouts. So that brings us to the playoffs. And out west, LA takes care of St. Louis, takes them 6 games. San Jose sweeps the Vancouver Canucks. So Vancouver had a pretty strong regular season, but come playoff time, you can see they were not ready. They were not able to do anything against San Jose. Detroit beats Anaheim in 7 games, so hard-fought series there. Chicago beats Minnesota. That takes 5 games. So the Minnesota Wild having their struggles come playoff time. And then in the East, Boston famously beats Toronto in Game 7. That was a comeback victory for Boston, and it was basically it was foreshadowing how Toronto and Boston's relationship was going to go over the next decade. The Rangers beat Washington 4-3. The Ottawa Senators beat Montreal 4-1, and Pittsburgh beats the Islanders 4-2 to round out the Eastern playoffs. The conference semifinals, Pittsburgh beats Ottawa 4-1. Boston beats the Rangers 4-1. Chicago beats Detroit 4-3, and LA beats San Jose 4-3. Both of those series thrillers. The conference finals, Chicago and LA. Chicago wins both games at home by scores of 2-1 and 4-2. LA wins at home 3-1 to get on the board, but Chicago wins 3-2. They go out 3-1, and they win at home in double overtime, 4-3. So at this point, Chicago and LA seen as the two best teams in the West. And then in the East, Boston. And this was a series that honestly I was so happy. Boston wins 3-0 and 6-1 in Pittsburgh. Then they go home, they win 2-1 overtime, and they win 1-0. They restricted Pittsburgh to 2 goals in the entire series. 2. Boston wins the series 4 straight, but again, people will tell you, but in playoff time, Tuukka Rask wasn't very good. Okay, sure. So in the final, it's Boston and Chicago. Chicago had made a living off of beating out the Vancouver Canucks. Well, now they get a chance to do it to my other favorite team, Boston. Chicago wins at home 4-3 in double overtime in the first game. Boston wins 2-1 in overtime in the second game. And then Boston wins 2-0 in the third game. So they're up 2-1. I got to admit, I was pretty confident at this point, and I was wrong. Chicago wins 6-5 in overtime in the next one. Then they win 3-1 at home. And they win 3-2 in Boston to round out the series in 6 games. I think Game 4 was one of those rage moments for me. But at any rate, Milan Lucic led in the finals in terms of scoring. 4 goals, 2 assists for Boston. Krejci had 5 assists. Bergeron, 4 goals. Daniel Paille had 2 goals and 2 assists. And Tuukka Rask had a .932 save percentage. But he wasn't very good in the playoffs. Boland had 3 goals and 2 assists to lead the way for Chicago. Patrick Kane, 3 goals, 2 assists. Taves, 2 goals, 3 assists. And Brian Bickle had a goal and 3 assists for Chicago. Corey Crawford, .925 save percentage. A little bit below Tuukka's, but he got the win in the Stanley Cup, so that was that. But there you go, the season that was the 2012-2013 season. And again, lockout shortened and all that. But still a fun year nonetheless. And it shows that if you had a shortened season, I think it's easier for a President's Trophy winner not having to go through the full 82-game schedule, going through 48, and then going into the playoffs. I think it worked out really well for Chicago. But anyways, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe in the event you've not done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support as always. I will talk to you again soon.